All right, part two of our notes, we're going to further take in law of cosines. So what I've done was I found this chart that kind of helps us with using law of cosines because we're going to start seeing questions like number 7 from your assignment, and at the end of part 1, there was a triangle that gave you just all three sides, and it didn't give you an angle. All right, so with these new formulas that I've found, it's kind of rewired the law of cosines in order for you to find the angle. The important part is when you're using this little mini chart right here to find the angle, what you need to do is you need to move the cosine function over to the other side and get the angle by itself. So in order to do that, we just keep the same angle, and then we invert cosine to this. Cosine -1. And you have that function on your calculator. Alright, so now we're ready to solve and find out what that angle is. Alright, and also when you do this, it's important that you solve everything in the parentheses first. So on the inside, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to figure out what the numerator is by adding up all of these exponents and also solving the bottom part of that equation. Or I'm sorry, solving the numerator. So once you've solved everything inside of the parentheses, you end up with a fraction inside of the parentheses. And at this point, you can type in exactly what is said here in your calculator. So in your calculator, you would actually type in the cosine inverse, then you would type in -700 divided by 864, and make sure you close your parenthesis. All right. So when you type that in, I'm going to hit second cosine inverse. I'm going to type in -700 divided by 864, close that parenthesis, and you get B is equal to 144.1. Okay, now that we've found angle B, we just need to find one more angle. And in order to find that angle, we're going to use our law of sines like we did in part 1. Alright, so I've got this set up to the sine of angle A over its side, which is 24. And then I've got the sine of angle B, which we found out was 144.1 over its side. So the first step we need to do is multiply both sides by 24 so we can get sine A by itself. So we get sine A equals 24 times sine 144.1 over 40. Okay, and then like we did in example, what was it, example 2 from our notes in part 1, we need to move sine over here so we can get the angle by itself. So when we do that, we end up with this. A equals the inverse of sine. That means we moved it. We did this in an earlier section. We moved sine over here to the other side. And then I'm going to keep everything right here that's in this fraction. I'm just going to rewrite it down here. 24 sine 144.1 divided by 40. Okay? Now, what you're going to do is type everything in your calculator. Alright? All of this goes in your calculator. And once you type all of that into your calculator, you get that angle A equals 20.6. All right, and then all we need to do to find angle C is we're going to subtract our two angles from 180. So we get 180 minus 144.1. Whoops, I got an equal sign there. 180 minus 144.1 minus 20.6. And let's find out what we get. We end up with 33.3. and that is angle C. So we found angle C, we found angle A, and we found angle B all together. Okay, the last section of part 2, we're going to be finding the area of two triangles. And if you notice, we're finding the area and we don't know any of the angles. Alright, but we just need one angle, because what we're going to end up using is that formula from section 1, or part 1, and that formula was K equals 1/2. Erase that. Why there's a mark there. Let's just move all of that. K equals 1/2 BC sine A. That's for finding the area. Okay? But all we need to do is find out what angle A is. So what we're going to do is use this formula up here. Alright? And we're going to type it in exactly as is. Okay, so I've taken cosine A and I've filled in for my sides. Now remember, you need to solve these exponents and multiplications so you can get down to just a fraction. So we're at the point now to where we have the cosine of angle A equals 114 over 126. Now remember, whenever we need to get that angle by itself, we're going to move cosine over to the other side here. Alright, so when we move cosine to the other side, we end up with A equals cosine inverse. Remember, we're moving it to the other side, so we have to do something to it and change that to the inverse. The fraction, whoops, losing my paper here. The fraction of 114 over 126. And you can put all of that in your calculator. Alright, and when you do that, you end up with A equals 25.2. Okay? Now that you have everything that you need for your area formula, we're just going to fill in and substitute everything we need in here. So I'm going to do that in blue. And I'm going to say, here we go for the final step, K equals 1/2 times B, side B, which is 7, times side C, which is 9, times the sine of angle A, which is 25.2. And this can all go in your calculator also. Alright, and we end up with K equals 13.4. That's our bread and butter right there. That's the area that we're looking for. Okay, with this being such a detailed section, it's going to get easier because a lot of this is all going to be just formulas. Alright, so I'm writing down most of the notes so you can kind of see as a roadmap of where we're going. A lot of this though is just going to be you using your calculator. So using Hero's formula will be a little bit easier depending on what you have here. Alright, when we're looking for the area. So first off, we're going to find S. Okay, that's first, step 1. And S equals 1/2 times A plus B plus C. So we're going to take all of these sides right here. And if I plug that in and use Hero's formula for S, I get that S equals 125. Now the easy part about this is you're going to use your calculator again. My page will stay still. We're going to put a note here to use calculator. So we're going to say K equals the square root of S, which is 125, times 125 minus A, which is 72, times 125 minus B, which is 83, and 125 minus 95. All right, now when you put all that into your calculator, you're going to get K equals 2889.2. Okay, now the most challenging part about this section is figuring out what formula you're going to use, but you're going to be able to use pretty much your calculator for all of your calculations.